So, in my very young YouTube career, which is a whole 9 months or something like that, I've learned a lot and I met a lot of great people. I met a lot of great people through the community who I talk to now on a daily basis. And especially with the Discord server, I'm able to talk to people in real time. But aside from the community, I've actually met quite a few other content creators. Of course, we all know Josh from The Enemy From Within, the Bill Kelly podcast, Todd Maffin, Klaus Kellerman, The Planet D, Bella the Ranch, Lena from Down Under. And Lena, if you're watching this, I did get your email. We'll be in contact soon. And many more to add to the list. But today, I would like to share a discussion that I had with Jason from Wrong Enough to Know Better. Him and I have been trying to get together on a call for like the last 2 or 3 months, but we've been playing email tag. So I'm happy to finally get a chance to get on a call with him. And we talked about everything from like US travel product boycotts, Greenland, China EVs, 51st state rhetoric, and KUSMA. So I hope everybody enjoys the conversation that I had with Jason. Today's backdrop comes from James, who sent in this photo from Trout River in Newfoundland and Labrador. He sent over a whole bunch of them, so I'm still trying to go through all of them, and I'll do my best to feature all of his photos. Appreciate you sending these over, James. Okay, I won't take too much time because this is a longer video. So if you need to get your coffee or tea, I would advise to pause right now. Okay, let's get started, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. All right, well, I have a very special guest with me today, and I want to thank Jason from Wrong Enough to Know Better to be joining me on this call. I mean, there's so much going on in the world right now, and it's great to talk to content creators also from Canada as well. So for my audience that doesn't know who Jason is, Jason runs a YouTube channel called Wrong Enough to Know Better, and I will leave a link in my description below for you guys to check out his channel. So thanks for joining me, Jason.
No, thank you for joining me, Leaf, because if you're watching from my channel, I'm speaking with Leaf. Well, I'm calling him Leaf. He keeps his identity private. But I'm speaking with Leaf from Guard the Leaf, and he's another YouTube content creator from Canada. And we both cover a lot of what's going on in the world, but primarily Canada and the United States right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Leaf, I'm going to call you Leaf. I know that nobody seems to have attached that name to you yet, but
Well,
if you're
I've
not
been called a lot. I've been called a lot of things. I mean, Guard the Leaf, GTL. Someone calls me Leaf Guard, which I say don't call me Leaf Guard because that's like a gutter thing.
yeah,
But you know what? I'm fine with whatever. So
I'll call you Leaf.
yeah, awesome. Well, I really want to thank you for joining me because I mean we've been playing email tag for about I think 2 to 3 months right now, and I'm very happy to finally be able to speak with you. And I guess to start things off, I mean, you have a few videos lately that is really talking about like, Canada security and the Greenland situation. So, I mean, I want to get your take on it. I mean, where do you think our relationship with the U.S. is going right now?
Long term, it is gone.
Yeah.
Immediately, I don't think. You know what I mean? We're all reacting to the situation. It's something that probably most of us saw coming at some point, but maybe not this quick and this obvious.
All right.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I always grew up with the impression that at some point, the United States was going to want our territory. We can't be this natural resource rich next door to the world's greatest superpower that isn't as natural resource rich as we are. So there's aspects that I always saw coming. Now, how this plays out long term, I can't say for certain, but everything that's going on right now was fairly predictable, but maybe isn't as imminently dangerous as a lot of us are behaving appropriately for, but it's not as imminent as we think it is.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've had my head in the sand up until I think this year or last year, right? And I've been kind of oblivious to everything. But as I started this channel, I really started to realize, yes, we are resource rich. We have a lot of things that they want. And I guess for me, it's really the trust that has been broken. And I think When it comes to Canadian security, I mean, I think a lot of people will say, yeah, Trump is just blowing smoke, or he's got crap coming out of his mouth, right? But there has to be something in my mind now that thinks, okay, well, this guy is deranged enough that I think the unpredictable nature of him, the world needs to really take this seriously. Even if he doesn't do anything, and even if it's just blowing smoke out of his mouth, it's something we got to take seriously now. But the biggest thing that kind of shocked me was the amount of U.S. citizens that actually support this, right? Obviously, maybe your channel and my channel, we have a lot of U.S. citizens that are totally against this. They're saying sorry to Canada and everything, but there is a fair amount that are actually supporting this, and that's what scares me.
Yeah, I think a lot of that a lot of it for the United States started back in the late 60s. And by the time they got to Reagan, the defunding of education was starting to have an impact. And now we're seeing multi-generational impact of defunding education in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's the polite way of saying there's a lot of idiots out there.
Yeah.
And I realize that it's not all Americans, but it's a percentage large enough that has caused revolutions in other countries. It wasn't every Russian that wanted communism, but there were enough of them, and they had enough desire that they were willing to overthrow the portion that was either against it, but more importantly, apathetic about it.
Yes.
So what you're seeing right now is it's not necessarily the number of supporters that we need to be concerned about as the number of apathetic Americans,
Right.
because that's the danger.
And the apathetic part really kind of, I'm not going to call my friend out on this, but I'm going to use him as an example. I have a friend in Nevada that has, I've known him for quite a long time. And even with everything going on right now, he's still trying to convince me to come down to, golf with him, right? And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm across this, halfway across the world. I'm not coming over. But second, do you not realize what's going on with your country? And he's like, no, what's going on? And I actually I paused and I'm like, do you seriously not know what your president is doing? And he's like, well, I heard a few things on the news, but I really, really it doesn't bother me, right? So that's just my one friend, right? But I imagine there's probably millions out there as well that are just, that have the same attitude as well, right? They just, if they're not bothered by it personally, they don't care about it, right? And if that's the case with my friend, then the millions of others who are just like them are going to see their country turn around in a way where they're not going to recognize it anymore, and it's already starting, right? So, but I wanted to, yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think the thing is that I spent years trucking in the United States, where for many years I spent more time in the United States than I did in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily something that people think about. Like, I wouldn't say Canadian truckers cross the border and realize how dramatic the shift is. I was always politically aware and conscious. So to me, walking across the border and all of a sudden falling into US exceptionalism propaganda bubble was really obvious. That, like, even their news that's, I'm going to say this, and I'm not referring to that station, but even their news that is fair and balanced, it focuses on the United States like it's the center of the universe. So they don't have any idea. At best, they have a slim idea what's going on inside their universe. At worst, they have no clue whatsoever what's going on outside their borders. Simple as that. But, I mean, we are talking about Canada, US. And so I do want to say, because, like, I know that your focus on your channel is a lot more focused at, the American understanding and behavior towards Canada. Mm-hmm. Mine is, I focus on both sides of the border a bit more, I would say. And That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But we have the same problem in Canada. I mean, we have Danielle Smith and all these Albertans who are signing a petition to go rogue and separate from Canada, which isn't going to happen. Like anybody who's got half an education knows that that can't happen. But they're still doing it anywhere. I mean, you've got Pierre, spreading mis and disinformation on a daily basis, who would love to defund, which we just saw in Alberta with the teacher strike, who would love to defund education so that the masses will listen to what they have to say instead of what's actually going on. The difference is the United States has decades more experience at defunding education, and now the dire visible consequences of that defunding of education is visible in every way, not just domestically, but internationally. So,
Yeah. I mean, I hope, I hope Alberta stays, and I hope this is all just noise. But at the same time as well, I think every Canadian needs to be aware of it and, kind of push back the small, loud voices that we have in Canada. So,
well, and just to be
yeah.
clear, because I just want to clarify, because of the way you said that, there is 1,000% chance that Alberta will never leave because it can't. Like legally, it just can't happen. So everything that's going on right now in Alberta is performative. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah. So we'll have to see how it plays out. I mean, hopefully, it dies down, and I really don't want to see Alberta separate. But yeah, at the same time as well, the voices that we have in Canada that are loud, I think they're taking the example of the U.S. and they're going to continue to be louder, unfortunately. So,
okay, then I'm going to disagree with you for a moment.
yeah.
I think that we're coming into the reckoning stage of right wing populism and dis and misinformation. I think that the clarity of the results of following populism is too clear for most people, and we're seeing it being rejected physically, like particularly obviously in the United States, where there was just the other day in Minneapolis, there was that right wing guy, and I've forgotten his name now, who went to Minneapolis to try and stir shit up and physically was basically dragged out. People aren't taking that shit anymore. And, now the calling out of Pierre Poilievre and his rhetoric is becoming more aggressive, we'll say. So I think we're seeing the tail end of it. I'm not saying there won't be damage still done by those people, but I don't think their power is still growing. I think we're in the diminishing phase of it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, I think the resistance is starting to get more in Canada when it comes to, shutting down Pierre Poilievre as well as any sort of nonsense. But what I was trying to say is that it's always going to be there, and it will, in my opinion, you will have times where it flares up, and then it'll calm down and it'll flare up. But I think now, especially with how the U.S. is, it's been acceptable now to kind of flare up, right? And where
it's been normalized.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how it goes. But I actually wanted to talk to you about the whole Greenland situation. I mean, obviously, I woke up this morning and then Trump was making, or basically downplaying all of the NATO, what's it called, the NATO participation in Afghanistan, and that really pissed off the UK. But like, what's your take on Greenland and Europe and what they need to do now?
I think that we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing right now when it comes to Canada, Greenland, Denmark, Europe. We have to do a polite transition because, right now, everything feels dire. When Donald Trump spews out something on Truth Social, where most of us are emotionally reading it like it's fact. but it's not. It's emotional, is what it is.
Mhm.
His aspirations for Canada and Greenland, they truly exist within Donald Trump. And Donald Trump at this stage has the control over certain levels of government in the United States, but he doesn't have control of the military. And that is key.
Mhm.
Now, granted, he was able to find a general to do his bidding in Venezuela, but it wouldn't be the same story with allies. It wouldn't be the same story if he said, go invade Canada or go invade Greenland, which by default is NATO.
Mhm.
So it is a lot of posturing. Is there an actual physical threat? No. Should we take it seriously? Like a heart attack. This is, this is where the seeds of something get planted, and you either shrug it off as something that shouldn't be taken seriously and it grows, or you nib it in the bud right off the bat and say this is never going to happen. And that's kind of where we're at, is that
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. We have to clarify that it's not going to happen. We have to clarify that we stand unified with Denmark and Greenland and the European Union prior to standing with the United States, which is no longer an ally.
Mhm. I agree, because I mean, I would choose the second one. We definitely need to stand with Europe and Greenland and Denmark, and even I'm not surprised he tacoed. And I woke up one morning and I had a video ready, and about his tariffs and stuff all ready to go. I was ready to record it, and then I woke up and he already tacoed on it. I was like, "What the hell, man?" So,
That is the
but
worst thing
regardless,
about being a content creator right now.
I know, and I tried to get that video out. I was like, "Crap, he already tacoed on it," so that makes my first report, invalid, right? But the point is that it's so back and forth and yo-yo and whatever else that I think all countries need to take a stand. You know what? We're not gonna take it anymore, and we're gonna prepare just in case you decide to, lose a couple more screws, right? So, I'm when I woke up this morning and I saw his comments about the UK not being on the front line or whatever, and that created a lot of outrage. And I hope that does feel the UK to kind of put their foot down and say, hey, look, we we're not going to take this anymore, right? So I know on Canada's part, we just recently had our prime minister in China, and I think that was probably one of the most successful trips that a PM has made. And the China EV cars, right? What's your take on the China EV cars coming to Canada now?
It's not complicated. It's
Yeah.
history. I think, what I think that the there's two camps in this right now, and one is it's happening. Okay,
Yeah.
so what? And the other is the outrage side, which you've got Doug Ford and Pierre Poilievre and their ilk.
Yeah.
But the reality is that this is a long-standing tradition in Canada. In 1965, Canada and the United States entered the Auto Pact. And it was because we had manufacturing. We did, beginning to end manufacturing in Canada of cars. We didn't do a particularly great job of it. It wasn't efficient. And the United States had their own thing going on. And it made sense that we combine the industry so that, and get rid of tariffs so that we could build efficiently and build better vehicles. And that went on for God knows how long. But the big thing there is that the agreement was that, say, Canada was 1/9 of the sales that there was in the United States. So we would do 1/9 of the production. That was
Right.
the deal, right?
Hmm.
So it equaled out that, like, we did the amount of work for the amount of cars that we bought. Now, where the profits went, different story, but at least we got the labor.
Yep.
So that went on into, the 1980s, into the early 2001, I think, where it transitioned from the Auto Pact into KUSMA, or NAFTA rather.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and also in 1965 was when Honda, I think it was Honda and Toyota, entered the Canadian market, and they were import only vehicles at that point. They weren't being manufactured here.
Right.
After the oil crisis in 1973, the popularity of Toyota, we had by then Datsun, Toyota, Honda, the popularity of them was growing because they were the most fuel efficient vehicles. And even though, we weren't necessarily impacted the same way by the oil crisis, we realized that it could happen in Canada. So people were being a lot more conscious about the price of fuel and fuel
Hmm.
consumption. So these smaller import cars became a big deal. And then when they wanted to import more vehicles, Canada said, okay, you can be part of this market, but you have to build here as well.
Yeah.
And so that's what the with the exception of Datsun, which became Nissan, they don't do manufacturing here at all, I don't think. And so we saw the rise of Honda and Toyota in Canada.
Hmm.
Now, we do manufacturing of both of those here.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about the Chinese, BYD particularly, coming into Canada, we're talking about 49,000 vehicles a year out of sales of 1.9 million vehicles annually in Canada.
Yeah.
It's a drop in the bucket. Like, it exists. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So the same way that as the demand for those vehicles, Datsun, Toyota, or rather Honda and Toyota grew, and eventually they had to manufacture here. The same deal, basically, from what I've seen, is what's happening with the Chinese EVs, which is, yes, come enter our market, but as your market share grows, you're going to have to manufacture here so that we're participating and getting labor out of it. So, do I think it's a bad thing? No, I think it's exactly the same thing Canada has done for decades. And the big difference now is that China isn't in a position to hold it over our heads the way that the United States is doing. The Windsor border for the last year has been insane because nobody knows from day to day whether an alternator is going to cost $45 or $450.
Yep.
And you can't run a business like that. So, despite this kind of goes back to the whole Greenland thing too, which is that we have to do a polite separation from the United States, because neither economy fares well if we separate overnight. So,
So the
the
problem,
introduction of
the problem I see there is that we might not have control whether we separate overnight, right? I mean, that's really up to the orange guy if he decides to have another tirade, right? So, for me, I see this China EV car thing similar to when the Japanese cars came in, and I have to thank my viewers for that because they're the ones that left in my comments telling me about that. But at the same time as well, I feel that we don't have as much control to have a polite separation. I mean, obviously, I would want to, but it's really up to the guy in the White House and how erratic he will be moving forward, right? So it's something that we have to factor in as well.
you know what? Yes, I don't. We won't. We won't. We are in the middle of an ugly separation.
Yeah.
but it's not an instant separation.
Yeah.
There, despite the fact that we know he's lawless and has little regard for agreements, even ones he's signed himself, the fact of the matter is that we are an integrated system. Yeah. And like virtually all of the northern United States is powered by Canada. Like, you can't cut us off any more than we can cut you off. So, yes, there are aspects that he could make painful for us, but he can't just say we're done with Canada, we're closing the border. Like, that's not going to happen. And for that level of action to be taken would require congressional approval, which he would never get. Like, yes, there are a lot of diehard MAGAs that will have their head stuck up his ass and will vote whatever he tells them to, but it doesn't require many of them for Congress to say, nope, this isn't happening. Like, so, and this is again why I say, we're not under an immediate physical threat from the United States, because he doesn't have control of all of the levers of government. He does have control of some of them, and he will blatantly ignore parts of them. But for actual massive actions, he doesn't have that kind of support, which is the reason why we need to be diplomatic, as Canada always is. We need to be diplomatic about this separation, because if we make this separation worse than Donald Trump is already making it, that's when Americans get behind whatever it is that he's doing. And that's the thing we don't want, is Americans starting to support him because we start looking like the bad guy.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I think it's definitely on the right side, his supporters that will already think of we're the bad guy, but we also don't want the apathetic ones to kind of think, okay, well, but I also feel that there's enough people in the US that understand that it's their country that is causing all of this. So I hope that grows. I mean, there's no way to tell. There's a lot of, in my opinion, there's too many apathetic people in the US that are totally oblivious on what's going on. But, I hopefully it doesn't go that route where he gets more support. But going back to the China EV cars thing, I mean, I think it's it's good for Canada. I mean, the more I researched on the Japanese cars coming into Canada, the more I saw that, hey, it had pushback back then, same thing that we're doing now, and look at the Japanese cars now, right? So it's a good thing, and I also feel too that we put the 100% tariffs on because of the U.S., and I don't think we should be doing that anymore. So. I'm glad that at least there's 49,000 coming over. I've sat in a few of them here in Malaysia. They're great cars, and they're also in Australia and Europe. So I don't see any reason why Canada should not be having them in the country. So
yeah, no, it's global integration is what it is, which also makes our market more competitive.
Yeah,
which is why the Orange Man is so opposed to it, is because the United States has had an automotive stranglehold. I shouldn't say an automotive stranglehold, because we have had 1/9 of the production. We've put in the labor for our portion of purchase, but he's created a situation where it's us or them, and if that's the case, then they have us over a barrel, right? So, becoming more globally integrated for Canada is obviously a good move, as long as we don't become dependent on China for vehicles. In the same way that the big three have traditionally had the market share here in Canada. I'm hoping we'll see a lot less of that, like over the coming years. But we'll get into that conversation, because I know that we both want to talk about boycotts and that sort of thing. So
yeah.
sorry about that. I'm back.
All right. So you just mentioned the U.S. boycott. I mean, obviously, we had an interesting year last year, and what are your thoughts compared to this year, 2026 to 2025? Because my thoughts is that I had a lot of friends that they went to the US last year despite everything that's going on, but they went because they already booked their vacations, right? So they booked it in 2024 or before the orange guy was officially took office, right? But though this is just my small inner circle, but those friends that went last year, reluctantly, have not booked this year. And they've actually booked trips to Europe or Mexico or even out to Asia to visit me. But the point is that they're not going to the U.S. anymore. So, what's your take on what's your prediction on the U.S. travel this year compared to last year?
I suspect it's going to continue to go downward, but
Mhm.
I think that at this point, the majority of the people who understand are already doing what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I had one friend the other week post on Facebook that they were going to go see, they went and saw Duran Duran in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
And I thought about saying something, but it's like, if you don't get it at this point, like,
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any point in me saying anything. And they enjoyed the Duran Duran concert, and the next morning, the United States invaded Venezuela. So it's like,
Hmm.
did I need to say anything?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that there'll be a small increase in the boycott or decrease in tourists to the Canadian tourists to the United States, and I think that where a larger impact will be, or a larger statistic will be, is Europeans going to the United States, because this whole Greenland Denmark kerfuffle
Hmm.
is really affecting the opinions of a lot of Europeans. So I think it's going to go down. Now, talking about boycotting, I want your opinion on this.
Yeah.
I would, something that I've thought for quite a while is that it would be really wonderful if Canadian content creators like yourself, me, Klaus Kellerman, Bill Kelly, Rachel Gilmore, a whole pile of us. Like there's probably a few dozen of us. If we could somehow create a network, not so that we could affect daily programming, but building
Hmm.
a sort of a silent network, so that
Right.
we could, I know that different content creators are backing different causes, and but every once in a while it would be nice if we could all pull together on one aspect. And one of the things that I would really love to see is a push for content creators to create a firmer boycott against, and I'm going to point out specifically Superstore,
Hmm.
because after a year of this, Superstore is still doing the bare minimum
Yeah.
in terms of products and in terms of marking the products and their location, their where they came from, their origins, right? So
Hmm.
the perfect example for me, because I love ending the day with microwave popcorn, is that Superstore's entire product line of microwave popcorn is American made popcorn. And we have companies in Canada that make it.
Hmm.
So why isn't that not on the shelf? Why has Superstore done nothing about that? Why are American russet potatoes sold in bulk, but Canadian ones aren't?
Yeah.
Like there
It's.
needs
I
to be
mean,
more of an
yeah.
effort.
It definitely needs to be more of an effort. I mean, I've done quite a few videos on maple washing. I have a lot of our viewers that send me photos of, uh, you know, produce that basically from Superstore or even Loblaws, saying that it is grown in Canada. But when you look at the actual label, it says a product of the USA, right? I mean, that's a problem that we all know. how do we fix it? I really don't know. I mean, I would love to have all Canadian content creators put more focus on it, and I'll do that. I mean, I'll put a message out to my viewers right now saying that if you notice any more maple washing, please send it over to me, and I will make sure that it is shown on my channel.
Or maple exclusion.
Yeah, maybe
Because the
exclusion as well.
popcorn situation is where, we have the product in Canada,
Hmm.
but Superstore is choosing not to sell anything other than American product.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's really where I was going with it. I think it's more a question of what we've seen over the last year in terms of boycotting the United States and their products has
Hmm.
been passive boycotting.
Yeah.
Um, we all we all understood the game. We all understood what needed to be done, and a large percentage of us have done the work. But I think that 2026, I would really like to see where we get more aggressive about it, where
Hmm.
you know, where we stand out, where we have weekend pickets outside of Superstore and hand out flyers, stating what the consequences are and what the lack of actions are by Superstore when it comes to US products. Like we've Superstore made changes because they knew the general population wanted changes, but they only went the bare minimum that they had to appease the masses.
Yeah.
So now I think for two reasons. One, we need to become visible so that places like Superstore have to make changes. But two, the more visible we are about it, the more
Hmm.
it creates public awareness for all those people who aren't politically astute, who don't pay attention. You know,
Hmm.
the only time they're going to be confronted with this is if we're standing outside of a Superstore explaining why it's important that we boycott these products.
Hmm.
So I think that's where, I see the difference is that we've been passive, and given everything, all that's happened in the last few weeks,
Hmm.
Canada 51st state talk, Greenland stuff, invasion of Venezuela, oil tankers going to profit Donald Trump. Um, 2026 is going to be exponentially worse than 2025. And we need to go from being passively boycotting to aggressively boycotting, I think, is where we need to go as a
Hmm.
country.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, if there's any way I can help out with my channel, I mean, I'm more than happy to contribute and spread the message. Obviously, I'm not in Canada anymore, so I mean, if there is protests or anything, I'm more than happy to feature them on my channel. So keep me in the loop on that, and I'm definitely interested in helping out. So.
Yeah, I think the thing is I think that this comes back to me saying it would be nice to see a collective of Canadian content creators because
Hmm.
individually, like you and I, we both have small voices.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't exist. We definitely make an impact, but collectively we have a much larger voice,
Yeah.
and so that's why I would like to see some more unity amongst Canadian content creators
Yeah, for
because
sure. I mean,
then we
I've
are.
reached out. Yeah, I mean, I've reached out to quite a few Canadian content creators. I think about 80% of the people that I've reached out to have responded, just like yourself. And Klaus and I have kind of gone back and forth a little bit on Blue Sky. Um, Same with the Planet D. So we'll try to see what we can do. I mean, there's only been a couple creators that I've sent multiple messages to that have never responded to me. I'm not going to name them, but
Yeah, yeah.
whoever we can rally up together, I'm more than happy to contribute. So.
Yeah, well, that might be my goal when I return back to Canada is, starting organizing. I mean, one of the things that I had thought about was, because to me, being a long haul trucker and those days being over now, and me sort of being a bit more of an international travel. Either way, I have travel in my blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought about was, well, maybe it's about, doing a cross Canada trip, organizing protests outside of superstores.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, my voice is so small at this point that I don't see that as being a successful option. But
yeah,
maybe organizing content creators so that something like that could happen.
for sure. And if there's any way I can help with that, let me know. I can
Appreciate
spread the
it.
message to my viewers as well. So, yeah, I'm totally in for that.
Yeah.
One last
What are
topic
your
I wanted. Sorry, go ahead.
hold on?
Yep.
Um, what are your thoughts on what 2026 is going to be like in terms of the boycott and tourism and that sort of stuff?
Well, I agree with you. I think everybody that gets the message now is going to get the message in 2026. So, everyone that doesn't get the message or doesn't care, they're going to continue to go, right? But I do
Yeah.
feel that I'll use one of my friend's cousin as an example. He used to go to the U.S. quite a bit, and even midway through last year, I think he was still going. It wasn't until he had an incident at the border that he decided, okay, you know what, now I'm done with the United States, right? So I feel that yes, people like you, me, everyone who's listening to on from our channels right now, we're not going, but those that are still going, I feel there's going to be a drip in terms of those that are, okay with going to the US who are not going to be okay with the US. And that's either going to be because something, whether it's an incident at the border or an incident in the US, or someone says, screw off Canadian or something like that. It is going to slowly start to get to the people who are still going. And eventually they're going to say, you know what? Okay, I'm done with the US as well. So
Yeah.
overall, I think travel, yeah, it's well, one travel factor. If you're actually looking at the numbers and the metrics, um, I think the numbers that this year are going to be um, percentage wise, it's going to slightly go higher because last year we had all of the Canadians and international tourists that had pre-booked vacations that they couldn't cancel, or it's just too much of a loss for them. So I think
Yeah.
that's going to be a group of people that are not going to be going to the US, which is going to raise up the numbers a little bit more in terms of people not going. So yeah, we can't change the ones that are continuing to go. If they continue to go, fine, right? But I still feel those that continue to go, eventually some of them, might not be a lot of them, but some of them may start to say, okay, the US is no longer for me.
Well, and I also think that I really hope that you make a follow. I don't know if you have made a follow up video to this, but you were talking about a tech convention that was happening in Las Vegas, and you wanted to see what happened with the numbers there. I would be really interested in knowing what happened with that. But I think that there's a possibility that a lot more conventions will start being held in Canada or Mexico,
Mhm.
um, because they're going to find, like FIFA is finding,
Yeah,
people don't want to travel to the United States anymore. Like
yeah,
it's not out of lack of desire. It's a genuine safety concern at this point. So,
yep,
you know,
yeah.
I
And
don't
then
know how much of an impact conventions have on their overall tourist levels, but for some places I know, like Las Vegas, it's substantial. So
yeah, yeah. And it's not just the safety, but it's also that they're making it more difficult for people to actually arrive, with all the new visa fees and whatever cost that is needed. So it's a big deterrent that I feel is going to be really shown in 2026. So, um, yeah. So before we end this, I just want there's only one last topic I wanted to pick your brain on. I mean, do you think KUSMA this year is going to happen, or do you think it's going to get canceled? What's your thoughts on it?
well, it can't be canceled. So aspects of it, is there going to be a new signed deal? Like, no,
Mhm.
absolutely not. I don't see any path, because for Donald Trump's entire method of operation is chaos.
Yeah.
And if he signs a Kuzma deal, he has to let it sit and fester for a year or two before he can claim that it's the worst deal in history, right?
Yeah.
And claim that Joe Biden did it.
Mhm.
Um, but he needs the leverage of instability. So, is he going to sign a new Kuzma deal? No. Is it going to be an ugly, long, protracted argument where one week Canada's having negotiations with the United States and the next week Donald Trump's having a temper tantrum. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. But
Yeah.
will there be a creation of a new agreement? No. Will the old agreement primarily still stand? Yes. Uh, will Donald Trump continue to use it as leverage to the best of his ability? Absolutely. You
Yeah.
know, and that's really like, I mean, you know, we're ping ponging with a 5-year-old throwing a temper tantrum. You know,
Yeah.
it's
And,
great as long as he's got a piece of cake sitting in front of him. But once that piece of cake is gone, he wants to know why he never got cake before.
yeah. And my concern is that even if a deal is signed or a modified KUSMA deal, what's stopping him from, a year from, down the road, just saying, I'm not even going to listen to this deal or agree to anything to it anymore, right? So, in my opinion, is like the KUSMA deal, in my opinion, is probably going to be dead, and we're going to have to do individual, partnerships or agreements on things that were bunched in. So, I don't know. I mean, I think
Yeah,
from
but
this point forward. Sorry, go ahead.
dead from a legal perspective means a slow transition out of it. It doesn't get signed in June, so there is no deal. So everything is done. We don't have free trade anymore. You know, certain things transition. The vast majority of things might transition out over a period of time, not months, but years, right?
Hmm.
So it's not like ripping the Band-Aid off. And
Yeah.
in terms of your concern for a year down the road after that, um, Donald Trump, everything is indicating that Donald Trump is going to be toothless in 2027.
Hmm.
And that's why I said 2026 is going to be exponentially worse than 2025. Because
Yeah.
everything that he and Project 2025 want to accomplish has to happen in 2026. Because
Yeah.
once the midterm elections, now I'm not one of these like delusional people that thinks that somehow the midterms are going to happen and all of a sudden the United States is going to become a wonderful country. But it will render Donald Trump toothless if the projections are right at this point.
Hmm. Let's hope it does. I mean, we need some sort of redirection in terms of where the U.S. is going. But even if it does get redirected, in my opinion, for me, this is just me speaking, there's been enough damage in terms of the trust level, not just from the government, but also from the people as well, that I will no longer see the U.S. the same way again, even if it's a Democratic president and a Democratic government running their
Yeah.
country. So, I'll always have my guard on. So it
Well, this is
sucks
it.
that
I
it
mean, the thing
happens.
is,
So
you said a different direction, and I would easily argue that if the Democrats win, the United States doesn't change direction. Like
yeah.
the United States has been on a trajectory for decades now that
Hmm.
both parties played a role in. And
Hmm.
so its trajectory doesn't change just because
Yeah,
Democrats win.
I
You know,
agree.
if
Yep.
if there's a civil war, if there's a revolution, and they reevaluate their priorities as a nation, then we might see a different trajectory. But I don't necessarily see that happening. I could see resistance to what Trump is doing,
Hmm.
but no codified resistance as to what it is people actually want, other than what they think it was before. And nobody knows what that before was.
Yep.
You know, like, was it
Uh,
capitalism? Like, well, this is what, unrestrained free market capitalism looks like.
no.
Congratulations, you've achieved it. What are you resisting?
Hmm.
Like, this is what you wanted, both parties. So
But
yeah, so our relationship and our attitude and our perspective of the United States, hopefully we can maintain our perspective on what the United States actually is for more than just 15 minutes after the Republicans lose power.
yeah. Well, at least for me, my focus is, that there's been too much damage done already, and it's going to take generations for them to refix this, in my opinion. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s. I mean, I don't think, at least for as long as I live, I'm always going to remember what happened this year
Oh,
and last year. So,
yeah,
you
they're
know,
done for me. Like
yeah,
I won't.
yeah,
I mean, I like as a trucker now. I have physical issues. There is a procedure that I got one series done of, and it seems to get rid of my pain. I have to go back for one more test, and if that works as well as the first one did, then I can get a semi-permanent treatment. In which case, theoretically, I could go back to trucking.
hmm,
But first off, there's no way I would ever cross the border again,
hmm,
um, just from a moral perspective. But the other is that like I have my YouTube channel. Like I am publicly facing and stating what my opinion is about the United States, Donald Trump, their policies. Um, so it's an actual dangerous country for me to go to now. Like I
yeah,
paid $200 more for my airplane ticket to avoid any layovers in the United States
hmm,
because
yeah,
it's dangerous. So
yeah,
there is no way that the United States ever wins me over again.
yeah. And that's why you only see my logo on the left side. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, and like
So,
rightfully so. You have, I mean, I think we both have family on the other side of the border.
mhm,
Um, Mine still has entitlement to Canadian citizenship, and some of them are actively working to come back to Canada, you know, as a family
that's good to
because,
hear.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I and
there's definitely a big movement because I mean, I've got a lot of emails from dual citizens saying that they're now making um, the changes and necessary, I guess, stuff to move back to Canada. So it's definitely going to be a big movement, I think, this year. So,
yeah, it's going to be. You know what? I think we'll see a lot more of that in 2026.
yep,
But again, I can't emphasize like how much more trying this year is going to be than last year. Like, while Trump is, you know, a combination of the desire for him and Project 2025 and the Stephen Millers and, you know,
yep,
the Krispy Gnomes and all these people, um, the desires to accomplish all of their goals this year, combined with Donald Trump and his diminishing capacities. So
yeah,
stability is not on the menu for 2026.
yeah, and it definitely isn't because every morning when I wake up, I look at my phone, see what else has happened while I was sleeping. So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting ride, but. It was great chatting with you, Jason. And I know we've been playing tag for the last almost 3 months now to try to get on this call, but we should definitely do this again. And
Yes.
I think once I start figuring out how to do this live streaming stuff, I definitely want to bring you on and we'll just be able to chat with our communities. So stay tuned for that. And once I figure it out, I will ping you and maybe we'll jump on another call again.
And I, in turn, want to thank you for being on my channel.
Yeah.
It was great chatting with you, and it's nice to finally not be playing email ping pong and
Yeah.
and get to talk to you in person. And I hope that we get to do it again soon. I have some. I'm moving. I'm transitioning from one city to another this month. So
Okay.
once I figure out, I'm going to have to go through the whole like battle of trying to figure out where and when to record again because India is not a quiet country and trying to find a good location to record can be very tricky. But yeah, we'll
Yeah,
get together again,
for sure.
and yeah, and I think that we'll have an interesting time watching what goes on this year. I have more things that I want to talk to you about, but we'll do that in a different episode.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And yeah, we'll touch base again in say sometime in February. Let's try to see if we can get something done.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you
Awesome.
then.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jason, and have a good rest of your day.
You too, Leaf.